Theorising that one could franchise travel between shows created within his own lifetime, Dr. Dan Beckett stepped into the Quantum Leap Accelerator and vanished. And so long as I am king, treason will never go unpunished. Sir Ellen, bring me his head. No, oh no!
Is your mother,
father!
I don't think it's such a good idea.
Where am I? Oh no, not Game of Thrones.
Damn that Scott Bakula.
Oh boy. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Dan Draws. I'm your host, Maisie Williams. Now for today's video I thought it would be kind of cool to take a character I designed back when I was 13 years old and redesign it now. Problem with that is a lot of the characters I created as a kid were pretty much homages to existing IPs. So the challenge for me really is not just to redesign my characters, but to make them look more original rather than just rip-offs of famous Marvel or DC characters. Okay, so let's get to it. Right guys, as you can see we've got the canvas set up here. Now I made a new canvas for this. Oh, by the way, the video is set to time-lapse because otherwise we'd be here forever. It was quite a long video, so I've managed to trim it down to about 11 minutes. I set up the canvas, so on the left hand side we have the original drawing, and on the right hand side we have me working on the new version. Now as you can see, the first one I started I didn't like, so I've had another go. Now this version I kept the pose. I did do a bit of editing as I went in terms of proportions and things like that, because that right arm there is quite big. And as you can see, I'm drawing the left arm in now, and if you look, you know, I mean, it might not be that obvious, but you can see it is a fair bit smaller. And what I was trying to do here was keep the essence of Stuntman, my original character from when I was a kid, who was blatantly a rip-off Spider-Man. There's even a part where he has a symbiote costume. Anyway, what I was trying to do was keep the essence of him so he's still grappling hook based, you know, still climbs and things like that, but I wanted to make it a bit more realistic and less obviously a rip-off of Spider-Man. So if I wanted to, I could potentially market this as my own character without it being a full-on rip-off. You know, basically Image Comics circa early 90s. Now, what I thought was I would look at more mountaineering style gear and would try and incorporate that into the guy as if he didn't necessarily, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't have superpowers, but he's got all the appropriate equipment for it. Even though he's city based, he's still got things like he's got the rope there around his waist. He's got a backpack, which I figured would have tools in. I've given him a mask that is like a, I think like a snowboarding mask, the sort of thing that people wear out in cold climates. And then I put big goggles on there that I know some mountaineers use normally, I think for sun glare I'd assume, and they wear them with oxygen masks and things, but for this I've just done it as part of the costume to hide his face. It's better than having essentially what is a Spider-Man mask. And I've kept the logo on his chest quite similar to the original, where it was a grappling hook in the sort of shape of an S, except I've spent more time looking at actual grappling hooks and things like that and tried to curl it round so it was an S. Anytime the screen goes black like that, it's because it's having difficulty with rendering things. Now here you can see, because at the time I filmed this video I was rendering some animation as well, which was a bit silly really, but I was limited for time. Now you can see here the things I'm drawing on the sides there, I was calling them impact pads. Now what I figured was the guy would have like a costume that was sort of a body suit. Maybe it was Kevlar based. Then on the sides and on the shoulders and things like that, you would have these things that I was calling impact pads, so that if he was to have a fall, obviously he couldn't survive a big fall, but if he was to fall then they would take the brunt of it, or if somebody kicked or punched him then they would take the brunt of the impact, like shock absorbers. The backpack I kind of wanted to be sort of like those plastic shell backpacks you get, but still have sort of realistic straps, so I tried to, even though I was doing this all on the fly, you know, I didn't have an idea of what I was going to do until I started doing it, other than I knew mountaineering style gear. You know, I did a bit of research into that sort of stuff. Now, it was the colour scheme I was having difficulty with, because I sort of figured more Batman-esque than Spider-Man-esque for the colours, because if he doesn't have any powers then he doesn't want to stand out that obviously. But here we go, after I did the penciling, when I came doing the ink, and it was quite a lot of rough pencil lines there, so it was a job to pick out the ones that I thought were the right ones or the best ones to use. I also give him elbow pads as well for obvious reasons, in terms of if he's a climber, you know, it's that way if he bangs anything. And the gloves, I did actually look at mountaineering gloves that didn't have the fingers, because obviously fingerprints, but would sort of be authentic and yet look kind of cool. As you can see, is me drawing in the Stuntman logo, which, really speaking, that should have curled a bit more over the border there, because it just looks like the rope is going into the border. And then I decided to put impact pads on the chest as well, and then on the waist, but not on the six-pack, because, you know, you gotta show off those abs. And obviously this one isn't done like a tutorial video, because it wouldn't be very good if I was doing it at 8 times the speed. So now this character was part of my essentially Marvel DC universe rip-off. I had Stuntman, I had Steelman. Steelman was part of the V Squad, I think, but I could never figure out what the V stood for. What I was trying to do is an X-Men rip-off, and obviously I couldn't use Extraordinary Men. So you had Steelman, then you had characters like the Blue Rings, and the Blue Rings were quite clearly Green Lanterns. I figured that was completely original because of the fact that they weren't using lanterns to power their rings. I had Wolfman, who was basically a Wolverine rip-off, but he was completely different because he only had 2 claws in each hand instead of 3. Now I've drawn in the grapple gun there. I figured that the original Stuntman that I came up with, the original, had liquid grappling hooks that he would shoot from his wrists. Very much like Spider-Man's web, weirdly. I figured this guy, though, he would have a grapple gun. Now, I did actually look to see grapple guns online. I thought, are they real? Are they real? And I sort of winged one. Maybe he does have lots of other grappling hook things as well, and things he can attach ropes to. But yeah, I give him a grapple gun. Now this solid border I'm giving is for my usual thing I like, so I can quick select stuff as well. I'm not a big fan of magic wand, but I do like to select in the interior for everything at once. I give a border around the black boxes there, so that when I did the border on the character, it wouldn't be visible. And now we're moving on to the base colours. Now I put the shine there because I thought it'd look cool. On reflection, I should have put it on the other side. When it comes to the shading later, I'm sort of like shading the side opposite to the side I wanted to shade, really. I could have changed it, but at that point I thought I'd just roll with it and see how it turned out. And I actually quite liked the end product of this. Definitely not the best thing I've ever drawn, but definitely not the worst. And the pose, the way I look at the pose is, it's sort of like almost like he's approaching the edge of a building, or he's tentatively approaching something maybe, or stepping back from something, who knows. He's suspicious. I decided to keep the colour palette to a low sort of colour palette thing as well. And what I mean by that is I didn't want to go over the top, so he was ridiculous. I mean, Spider-Man is just red and blue, Superman's red, blue, yellow. So for this I thought grey, black and blue, maybe with a few different shades of the black. And I did try, I think I ended up with 2 different blues. And obviously there's the pink on the visor, but I quite like that because it's like a stark contrast to the rest of the colour. So I don't really mind that so much. But yeah, it was a case of keeping it muted a little bit more, so that he would be able to sneak around. If you notice the bit around the head mask as well, it's got the sort of scarf element thing, so essentially you could actually buy one of those face masks. Underneath it, it's got a small eye area, which I've put the huge visor over. And I wanted the huge visor because a lot of the time when you see superheroes, they're wearing stuff over their faces that would obscure their peripheral vision, so it wouldn't really work too well. And with this one I figured it covers, since the mask covers a massive chunk of his head, then it wouldn't be too bad. And here we can see I'm putting the colour in on the bag now. This way I was trying different blue to see if a darker blue, a bolder blue might be better for it. And here we can see the other blue. and this is the start of the shadows for it. So as you can see, it's on the opposite side of probably what I would have done. But yeah, I think it looks alright. It looks alright in the end anyway. And there's me accidentally paint bucket filling something so I hadn't closed off a section. And just filling around the areas where I think the shadows would be if it was coming from where the light is on the visor. Actually, I had a few highlights as well, but I was putting in a load of shadow there. There we go, here's the highlights now. And the shadows were a dark red. The highlights were a very light blue. I went for opposite sides of the colour wheel. I was going to go for a red light as well, but I thought, nah, I'll go for blue. And the background, I did do a background for it, but it's not a particularly detailed background because the background's not the point. I just want something, you know, like a scene for him to be stood in. And the first one was a bit rubbish, so in the end I went for the option of, if you upgrade Clip Studio to the EX version, it comes with a like auto trace feature for photographs. So like if you didn't want to draw a car, it could trace the car for you, and seemed like with cityscapes and stuff. So I actually used for King's Landing, for part of King's Landing at the start of the video, I did just start drawing it, and then I remembered that I could do it. So this is where I'm drawing the city in as the background first. Obviously it's too square and it looks a bit rubbish like that, so I'm putting all this in, and obviously the further things get away, the lighter they look, or which is more effective. It's a old Bob Ross thing, that is. But then I decided that was pony, so instead I opened up a photo file I found online of New York, imported the file, you'll see it here now, there we go. Resized it, positioned it, and I used the new feature from EX to do that with the photo. And because obviously I don't want to spend ages on the background for it, because the background's not the point, like I said. So I'm just quickly filling these areas in, and yeah, there we go. Turn the background back on for the sky colour palette. A basic bit of detail for the city there, and filling that in for a bit of shadow. A bit of lighting, and boom. So essentially there we have my 2019 redesign of my totally authentic original character, Stuntman. And so Stuntman, a character I was drawing way back in 1994, has been updated for 2019, looking a lot more his own character than a Spider-Man clone, which is kind of funny because I was drawing him around the time of the Spider-Man clone saga. Maybe in the next video I will have a stab at redesigning Wolfman. I think that one might be a bit trickier because he is essentially Wolverine, but we'll give it a go. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. If you're interested in checking out some of the comics I work on, I actually have a Patreon that I've been running for the last couple of years, where you get early access to my design work, my comics, etc, etc. And I'll put a link for that below. Other than that, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks, bye.